Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. And today we have Sarah Hoffman, the VP of AI and Machine Learning Research at Fidelity Center for Applied Technology. And today we're speaking about the future of AI. So, welcome to the show, Sarah. I'm so excited to speak with you more about the future of AI and all the advancements and insights that you might want to talk about.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And could you tell the audience more about yourself and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I work for Fidelity Investments Department, Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, which is our innovation department. We're really focused less on what is the business doing today and more on where are things headed in terms of technology and sociocultural trends and startup trends over the next 5 years approximately. And then, we make recommendations across the company. In my role, I'm leading the AI research. So most of my research, I write papers and give presentations in the area of AI and where it's headed.
Yeah, that sounds great. And today the big topic is really about the future of AI and kind of seeing what the advancements are within the next couple of years. And so, how are companies working on being more data driven in the future?
Great question. I've actually been researching this topic for a little while to see. I know this is like a big pain point for many companies. And I found six areas that companies are working on. Two of them I'll kind of lump together: democratizing data and democratizing AI. And so what I mean by that is when companies are recognizing that, and especially for companies that have been around a while, that there's so much data, but many of the employees, including data scientists, have no idea what data is there, how to access the data. It could take a while. And so really making sure that the people in the organization who need that data know it's there and can easily access it. And by democratizing AI, similar concept where we want people beyond the machine learning PhDs to be able to do AI because there's just not enough of them, and you want to be able to have AI throughout the organization. And so companies are strategizing on ways to have the right tools in place that software engineers can do AI even without that AI background, and even non-engineers in many cases, depending on the right tools. And then I'll go on to my other four. One of them is, I guess, also looking at beyond the traditional data to alternative data sets is another key component, because the data that is most obvious might not be enough. And then we talked earlier about the just the lack of enough machine learning PhDs. And so companies are really getting creative in how they do recruiting it with AI. Often the resume almost doesn't matter. It's just, here's data, show me what you can do with it. Having hackathons, all sorts of ways to just get the talent that we need without worrying about what school do they go to, what degree do they have. The organizational structure is also changing for data-driven companies. And there's no one right organizational structure. It's really based on where the company is in their AI and data journey. Also how large the company is. They're going to need a different structure, but really making data come to the top. And so the data could be a focus within the organization. And then the last, and in my opinion, the most essential, is transparency. Really making sure that customers, employees, anybody using your system really understands what data you're using, how you're using it. They've agreed to have it used in that way. Understand how your AI machine learning models are working, and there's open transparency to all of these AI and data challenges.
Yeah, and with part of the work that you do at Fidelity is also writing a lot of different articles, just kind of seeing the future of how things are changing. And so you titled one specific article titled "New Data Fuels AI Opportunities in a Remote World." And so right now things are constantly changing with this pandemic and everything being remote and things starting to open back in the US right now again. Could you tell the audience more about this article and what were kind of your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So the reason I wrote it is actually something that I started noticing as I've been, for a very long time now, meeting with people only remotely. And I started picking up on things like, one colleague just used to always have video meetings and then just stopped with video. And another colleague used to have meetings that were at least 45 minutes and then they became less than 10 minutes. And there were just certain things that I started noticing, and I started wondering, I wonder if there's something here where maybe, we're all dealing with, I think, a lot of mental health issues now this year with the pandemic. And what if some of these things are indicative that somebody is not doing so well? Like maybe we could, even without any human involvement, because ideally I think you don't want human involvement when it comes to mental health or something that might be privacy related, but just like tell somebody, hey, you may want to go take a walk now. Imagine if the AI is like, okay, you seem to be, having too much Zoom, just take a walk or go have a cup of coffee or go do some meditation. And it got me thinking that there might be so many ways we could really help employees by using AI to pick up on some of these changes that might indicate something important. And it might not only be over Zoom. It could could be somehow their, Microsoft Teams or Slack messages are changing style. And maybe that can indicate something important that we can help that employee with. And it's not only employees, maybe we could help customers. Maybe we could use it to identify fraud because if behaviors change drastically, maybe it's not who we think we're talking to. The big issue, though, whenever I think about topics like this, is I think, especially today, there's so much weariness over surveillance, corporate surveillance included. And even if you were to only use this to help people in a completely positive way, there still might be a backlash. And so that's the other part of this, is me thinking, where would people be okay with this? Would people be okay with it if we were only using it in a positive way? Or would there still be the reluctance to trust the system and worry that this isn't going to be private, worry about bias, all sorts of concerns?
Yeah, definitely. And it's very interesting to see things constantly just changing right now. Yeah. And for your specific line of work, is there anything in particular that's kind of maybe your favorite part?
Yeah, so I guess I mentioned part of this like innovation department in Fidelity. And I love the fact that it's very flexible and open in terms of, I figure out like what I think we need to be talking about. It's not someone telling me, here's the thing you're going to write about or the thing you're going to present on tomorrow. It's really what I think is the most important across our businesses at Fidelity. So it's in all different areas. And so I've, written and researched topics related to, where are we going to have pure machine automation, forget the human, where are we going to need a combination? I've researched the topic of ethical AI and how we can use AI responsibly, and especially this year, but even before the pandemic hit, I spent a lot of time on exploring, mental health technology and how we can use technology to help with some mental health challenges. And even beyond technology, I was researching the area when the pandemic hit of, I guess pre-pandemic, I was always kind of looking at the stats on women and what's going on with women in the workforce. And I was excited to see at every stage in the pipeline, even though the increases were way too small, but at least they were increasing. And then the pandemic hit and people started dropping out of the workforce. Saw stats on women getting promotions and how that dropped, all sorts of other statistics that I found and many people found very concerning. And so I researched that topic as well and started talking in different business units at Fidelity to see what we can do about some of these challenges. And so I love that it's really up to me, up to my team to really see what we think we should be exploring and hopefully, help Fidelity, help employees and customers in the best way possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to dive deeper into that topic, actually, of the idea of just how the pandemic has really affected women in the workforce. So you saw a trend of how women, a lot of them were kind of dropping out of the workforce, kind of probably coming back home, taking care of the family, since everything was kind of remote during this time right now. And so how do you see this kind of changing in the next couple of years when post-pandemic kind of happens?
So it's a great question. And there are a number of stats that show that if people even only like leave the workforce for 6 months, like the amount of money and their earnings that drop. And so I'm very concerned about people, okay, even if we want to please believe that this pandemic is almost over, which I hope, but I don't know. But, and it's still just being for the women who've, either taken a step down in their career or dropped out completely or, had to get off the workforce, just that year could really have a long-term impact if we just let the status quo happen and we don't really have an additional initiative to really make sure to hire back these women and figure out ways to help the women deal with to come back. If the pandemic also continues or if there's another pandemic, then we really have to figure out, okay, what could we be doing differently? Because we can't just have this go on longer. But I'm still worried, even if the pandemic ends today, that we need to make sure to go back to the stats we've seen before and even better, where things were increasing. And even then, it wasn't increasing that much. So let's figure out how to have more, and this is diversity, not only about gender, but all sorts of diversity. And especially, I guess I'm coming from the AI side of the world, diversity is even more important. I mean, it's important in every field, but especially AI, where if you don't have that diversity, you're creating these systems that aren't necessarily representative throughout. And so I do think we really, really need to focus on diversity now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such great insight that you brought. It's really crazy to think how much this pandemic has really impacted everybody, especially also women working in the field and having to drop out of the field as well. It's so important for other companies to also be aware, just moving forward, even post-pandemic, that there's going to be a need for more diversity within the industry as well. So thank you so much for bringing that up. How do you see kind of just in general the future of AI changing in the years to come?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways I'm kind of really excited about the future of AI. The field of edge AI, where we're getting AI algorithms locally on our devices, I think really opens up the door to so many new opportunities with AI. I talked earlier also about the humans and machines, and I think today we still don't really get exactly where to rely on the machines and where to rely on the humans. But I do think in over the next few years we're going to figure that out. We're going to realize, okay, these are the tasks that are really really good for the machine. Let's stop having humans do it, and these are the tasks that we've tried to give machines emotions in certain ways, and let them detect that, and maybe we shouldn't have, or empathy. There might be certain areas where we'll say, okay, that is not something we necessarily want to bring to the machine world, and let's keep that in the human world. And so I'm kind of excited to see, as we learn more, where we're going to realize, let's just use the strengths of everyone instead of trying to get humans doing everything or machines doing everything. And I talked earlier about like the area of ethical AI, and that's another area where I think that, it's everybody's talking about it now, but so few people have gotten it right. It's not about the technology. The AI technology is really, really clever. It's getting better and better. But not enough companies have focused on the process of how we do AI, and they're finally starting to realize we need to think about the process of doing AI. And I think within the next few years, we'll have gotten that process right and hopefully be able to do AI much more responsibly. We talked about the bias issues within AI. There's also the environmental impact of AI. And I think if we, within the next few years, hopefully enough companies will start thinking about that process to make sure we're doing AI in the best way possible. Also add that I'm kind of, it's been exciting to see the start of using AI basically throughout the lifespan, from cradle to grave. You see kids now playing with, like learning even from AI, little robots or different programs that teach them things. And even in like some places, there are assisted living places where the robots are entertaining elderly. And I do think it's exciting to see how we can incorporate AI in different ways throughout our entire life cycle.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to say thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today on our show. Where can everyone find you online just to connect with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. Both of them are Sarah with an H, F as in Frank, Hoffman. Same place on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah, perfect. And to our audience, for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. It was so great to just hear more about your experiences and your expertise about the future of AI. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me on the show.